Thank you to Carl for this real life challenge that he encountered. So if we take a look at our data, then you'll see that I have enabled the source row number to start off with. So that kind of comes later on in the challenge when we're thinking about using a fill down for this data set. But I've turned it on basically in the input step just by coming to the source row number, which comes in with any CSV, with any Excel file, that sort of thing. And it comes in by default switched off like this, but I just go to this little menu item here in the input step and say include field, and it gets included. So that's how it's looking in my dataset. So what we can see here is that what we actually want to do is associate this project name with all the expenses and invoices beneath it. So the first thing we need to do is extract the project name itself. So if we come to our project extract, then I've used a calculation here, and I've basically used the fact that if the cost and the invoice is null, then that means that it's likely to be the project name. Because if it's an expense or an invoice, then it's going to have a value there in the cost or the invoiced amount field. So that's how I've extracted my project name. So I've got scatter my plots, Dataversity, and Data Prep School, all out in my project fields. And now we get to use the shiny new fill down feature. Ooh, it's pretty impressive. So we come to our field that we want to fill down. We go to the menu here, we go to create a calculated field, and we select the fill down option. And then how that looks is that I have my project one here selected as the result that I'm filling down, and I want to order that by my source row number. So then what happens is you can see that it's just going to fill down my scatter my plots to then when it finds the next project name, it then fills that down. So it works exactly how you want it to, which is super great. So I'm just going to delete this fill down because I actually did that in this step. So there's our project name now taken out. And then we just want to filter our data. We no longer need this row that has just the project name on it. We also don't need the null value here. So we go to the filter and we're just going to say that our project doesn't equal our project name, and indeed that gets rid of any of those rows that are null or have the project name within them. So that's wonderful too. Now we want to change this so that we have now a field for our invoices and a field for our expenses. So we want to total that up for each of those projects that we're working with. So we basically just need to remove the numeric values from our project name, from this project field, which just contains our expenses and invoices now. So we can go to our menu here, go to the clean and say remove numbers, and then we'll have say expense space or invoice space because we've got rid of those numbers. So we also want to make sure that we trim our spaces as well, so it gets rid of that extra white space at the end of our value there. That's just good practice really. So we do that here in this step. So we just have our expense and our invoice. And then what we want to do, as we said, we're trying to get to a stage where we have a field for expense and a field for invoice. So we're going to need to do a pivot so that we have a field for invoice and a field for expense. But the issue there is then what would go underneath those headers? Should it be the cost or should it be the invoiced amount? Well, the truth is it should be, it depends if it's a project or if it's an invoice or an expense. So basically we want to combine these two fields, or in prep language we want to merge the two fields. So I want to pick one of them up and drop it on top of the other in order to merge those two fields together. So we use merges where we have null values in one of the fields and a value in the other field, so we just overwrite that null with the value, basically. So there we go. That's what that looks like now. And then we come on to our pivot. So we have our project here, we have that cost that we had before. We want to make sure we're summing together all the costs so we get the total expenses or the total invoices for each of those projects. And then now we're in a state to be able to work out our profit. So we just create a calculator field where we do our invoice minus our expense, and then we're left just with our profit for each of those projects. So that was a really cool use case for showcasing the power of the new fill down, as well as using the source row number in order to allow us to do that fill down. So thanks very much for this challenge, Carl, and thanks very much for watching.